Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tea Time Tuesday. I am Carmela E. Head. I'm the Director of Renewal and Community Programs here at the Renewal Center. Welcome to a time of pause, a time of reset, a time of resilience, building resilience in our community here at Tea Time Tuesday. I am so excited. We at the Renewal Center are excited when Tea Time Tuesday is here because we get a chance to come and take this opportunity to get practices on how to reset and how to get ourselves in a state of calm as we engage our community, our wonderful tea timers out there. You know what? I'm excited because we are actually in our time of fall and autumn. Fall is here. I actually love fall. It's my favorite time of the year. And I hope that you guys are excited and ready to move forward in this fall season. We are closing out the month of September, which is the month of self-improvement. And just because we're closing out doesn't mean we're going to not continue in personal development. So we're going to use this month of self-improvement as a launching pad to move forward in our goals and dreams and the capacities and in self-development. So we're so excited. We want you to go and invite your friends. Tag your friends, invite them to come and join us here at the Renewal Center. We are streaming live on Facebook as well as it's over on the It's Patrick Brown page on YouTube. So if you know someone that uses YouTube, invite them to go out there. We're streaming live there as well. So tag your friends and go get them and invite them to come and join us right now for a time of reset. So without further delay, I want to open up with our tea of the week. How many of you guys got your tea with you? Make sure you got your tea in your journals. I got my tea with me today, and I'm excited. I had some English breakfast tea this morning, and I also have it with my cream, so I'm excited. Our tea of the week is winter melon tea. I know it's not wintertime yet, but when I found out about this particular tea, I was so interested in it because it's not a particular hot tea, and we'll find out some more information about that shortly. Winter melon tea comes as a traditional herbal tea, which is made from the winter melon fruit. So kind of looks like the cantaloupe or the other melons of its kind. It looks just like that pretty much on the screen. The original or traditional name for winter fruit is wax gold. I said, wow, wax gold. Gourd, that's right, gourd. Those melon fruits, they originated from Southeast Asia. It is a fruit, like a fruit drink. It's kind of like a melon punch, and it's made with the melon juice, brown sugar rocks, or any sweetener of your desire, or what you'd like to put in there to make it nice and sweet. A lot of the variations have been made to this particular tea, so if you do your research, you may see a little bit of some other fruit added in or other type of sweeteners or whatever. But actuality, it's all refreshing. It's a very sweet tea that you can, drink on a nice warm day. So winter melon tea. So now we have a couple of nice iced teas to serve when we are engaging others. So let us know if you ever get a nice cup of winter melon tea. We would love that. Good afternoon, Elder Monique. How you doing? It's good to see you. Okay, so we want to move forward with our month of self-improvement. I have a wonderful book I want to share. It's so exciting. Here in the Thought Room at the Renewal Center, we're so excited about our in-house library. We have such a variety of great books. Our book of the week, Follow Your Heart. Move it over this side. Follow Your Heart and Discover God's Dream for You. And that's by Judy Peterson. Oh, man, I tell you, this is an awesome book. And I was reading through the first chapter, and it said, you were born to dream. Such an exciting chapter, and how appropriate for the month of self-improvement. Let me give you a little synopsis of this book. Do you dream of more fully using your talents and gifts to benefit others and to honor God? Or perhaps you're not content with the status quo and believe God is nudging you to do something new. Through life stories of these women and others inside of the book, Judy Peterson helps you identify your dream, gives you practical steps to pursue it, bolsters your confidence, and move ahead in faith. So whatever your stage in life, family situation, or background, you can follow your heart and discover God's dream for you. So, this book is not only motivating, it's life changing. And if you've recently known or thought, I need to get a life, look no further. This book is for you. And I really like this book. The foundational scripture is Psalms 20:4. It says, May God give you the desire of your heart and make all your plans succeed. So check this book out when you get an opportunity. Follow Your Heart by Judy Peterson. And so without further delay, we want to move forward into our Tea Time Tuesday with our Executive Director, Patrick J. Brown, for a time of renewal practices on reset and calm. So we're so excited. Good afternoon, Nicole. Good to see you.
Hello, good afternoon. It's good to be here. How you doing today, Carmela?
Oh, good afternoon over there. How you doing?
Oh, doing well. Thank you so much. This is good. I'm glad to be here on our last installment for Self-Improvement Month for Tea Time Tuesday. And so this is wonderful. I like the book that you chose about following your heart and how do we discover God's dream. It's powerful to know that God dreams about us.
Yes.
You know, that somewhere in the infinitesimal greatness of God, of I am that I am, that there's a dream that is custom made for us. That is powerful. And so I'm so glad it just makes me reflect that, it has that little leaf on there. And I like that little leaf, just how it's the individual part, just the freshness. We're going into fall. I tell you, I appreciate that. That's wonderful that we're able to think through, just the fact that God has a dream for us.
Yes.
And so I just want to encourage everyone as you're drinking your tea, share with us your tea, by the way. That's where we are. Please share us with your tea. We're going to locate ourselves. And then today, I'm going to emphasize something I think that's very interesting about how we can focus on what we have and who we are. Today's tea time is called Good Enough and Running. Good enough and running. And I want to really help you use a word that we're going to introduce to you today to get a theme for the rest of your year. We're going to call it Gear Up. Time to gear up. And so we're going to break that down. So I want to thank everyone. Let's see who. Teresa says she doesn't have any tea today. Karen says turmeric moringa. All right. Anybody else? What's your tea of choice for today? Be good to hear from you.
What are you drinking today?
Well, I actually have some coffee today. I don't have my tea today, so
okay.
So I have my coffee right now. So that's kind of where I am today. But again, I'm glad to be in our Tea Time community. Part of this is about resting and resetting, but fostering resilience. We do that by coming together and being hospitable. That's why we have this. And so I want to say good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone, wherever you're watching. So glad that you're here. And so I want to share a few principles. But before we do that, pause where you are and let's locate ourselves. All right, let's allow peace to be our portion today, calm to be our portion today. So let's just take a few seconds here. I want everyone, please, to get in a good posture and just breathe in through your nose. Go ahead. Just hold it and then breathe out. One more time. Let's locate ourselves. Breathe in through your nose. Go ahead. And then release. Good. One more time. Breathe in. And then breathe out. I want to thank everyone for joining us in that exercise today. Don't you feel so refreshed when you do that? When you just take a pause through all the different energies, access, all types of things that are just throwing it at you. You can say, nope, I'm blocking you. I'm going to take a time to make sure that my mind is set on things that are above. not on things that are on this earth. And so I want to make sure that we invite peace to be our portion today. Carmela, thank you for opening us up today. And I'll see you when we're finished here shortly. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Well, today we're focusing specifically on what I call gear up. Gear up. So on the screen, I have gear up. I want you to type that in the chat, in the comments. Gear up. Good enough and running. We're good enough and we're running. So, well, why are we focusing on good enough and running? Because when you gear up, you recognize who you are. You're at a space where it's good enough and running. You're moving. So for October, for November, for December, we're going to gear up for the rest of this year. We're going to gear up because there's some areas, many times, there are different areas that try to tell us, I don't know where it may come from. Sometimes it's internal, sometimes it's external, sometimes it's the atmosphere where we are, where it tells us, yeah, that's not good enough. You know, as I entered into my doctoral program, I had been out of graduate school for a while, and I was struggling with the fact that I'm going back to a space where I didn't think what I was doing was good enough. I immediately went to analysis. I went to measuring myself. Has anybody ever you measured where you were before you even start? Like there were stories I started creating, we talk about that, narratives. And so even though no one had said anything to me, I already had built up some narratives. I had built up some stories. And I mean, I don't know about you, but sometimes when you have those stories, they're like 4D, virtual, digital, full movies. And you're sitting there, you're thinking, well, because I was a little intimidated by the realities. I was going back and I had to research, I had to write a particular ways that I had not done before. And I had to realize, when is good enough enough? I kept revising my paper, kept going over things I was writing over and over and over again. I'd write one thing and then I wouldn't do it again. And I wouldn't submit it. What if it's not good enough? These things began to go into my mind. Now, of course, we need to be confident in who we are. But there are days in our lives where we get stuck, perhaps, in this analysis, this evaluation, this assessing ourselves, and then we don't get started. So the focus for today is gear up. Gear up. Good enough and running. What do you mean good enough and running? There are times you just got to move on from where we are because what you're doing is in a place where it's good enough. I hope this is resonating with you today. And as we move into the last 3 months, the last quarter of this year, I would like to encourage you to adopt this as a potential mantra on where you're going when it comes to starting things that might be new. You might have a new project. You might be assigned a new team. You might be launching a new product. You might be leading in a new initiative. And that it's important that we have to gear up. This is our time to gear up, okay? And so I just want to encourage us in our tea time today that the takeaway is about gearing up. And by the time we're finished, you'll know exactly what this means. So let's take our time and let me just introduce to you a few aspects about gearing up, and I'll ask a few questions regarding that. So when we talk about gearing up or good enough, it is really an art of knowing when good is good enough, and you balance it with creative and critical thinking, and you determine when and where to invest in better than being good. So in other words, we know there are books out there that talk about from good to great, right? We've read different books. We've been exposed to different information. And I think there's an art here of knowing when good is good enough, where we stop trying to improve on something that's already at a good state, if that makes sense. And we balance it with creative thinking. We balance it with critical thinking, because if we stay there, we will not move forward. Somewhere in our career paths, we're expected to solve problems. Your jobs, your families, your careers, your teams. different crises that might show up. And so while sometimes, a mechanic perhaps can connect a vehicle to a diagnostic machine and it'll show what the problems are, that particular mechanic must still use critical thinking to further understand that the problem it's either isolated or is it impacting other systems, and what's the best way to fix it and to prevent the problem from reoccurring in the future. So every discipline basically has that approach. So what I would like us to focus on is there are times when we have to learn how to be good enough and run or gear up. Otherwise, we will spend precious time in specific areas, 2 areas I want to focus on. So let me share this with you today. There are times we'll stay in what I call imaginary perfection. Imaginary perfection, where we know we need to resolve an issue. We know that problems may arise. We have to work through the changing needs, the changing nature of businesses and what's taking place. And so my encouragement today in Tea Time is let's develop the art of gearing up. Let's adopt a mindset to gear up, not just for survival, but so that we can manage any high volume work that's coming, any high pressure situations that come. And what it ends up doing is you can build trust and credibility with your teams. So let's all type it out again, or you can say it where you are. Gear up. It's time to gear up, be good enough, and I'm running. Otherwise, we will stay there and we'll continue to try to perfect, and we don't move forward. We've got to gear up. And so good enough, we spend precious time and energy battling perfection. Oh, I want you to sit with this today. It's external perfection, internal perfection, but nonetheless, it's imaginary perfection. It's like a learned helplessness, just like how they train an elephant at a circus. How is it that this big elephant has this little small rope and a little small peg that it has the ability to, take out of the ground, but yet they place it there, and the elephant believes because of its training, I can't get out of this rope. I can't get out of this little peg, this little rope. And so it does not advance. It does not move forward. Woo. So folks, we got to gear up. This is important. So if that elephant does that, imagine the different imaginary perfectionist mindsets that we adopt. Now, I can't tell you that. Nobody else can tell you that, but you know where you are, whether it's external perfection or internal perfection. Now, when it's external, that's when it comes from people who try to tell you what your motives are, or people try to tell you what you're thinking, or they try to tell you what you're feeling. That's imaginary perfection from an external perspective. And what ends up happening is when there's an external perfection that takes place, then there's a constant atmosphere that things do not measure up. Performance does not measure up because we're in a constant state of evaluation. That's not a good feeling. That's imaginary perfection. So we want to be mindful. Part of gearing up, good enough and running, is that as I am growing, I'm going. Type that out. As I am growing, I am going. May sound simple, but that is profound. As I am growing, I'm going. As I'm evolving, because there's not a state of perfection. In other words, we would need to ask, who is the standard? Who's the standard of this perfection? This meteoric rise to leadership. Or so as I am growing, I am going. What do you mean where you're going? I'm manifesting what's inside of me because I'm learning to gear up. Gear up today. Good enough and running. Good enough and running. Otherwise, we'll be stuck in imaginary perfection. We talked about external. What about the internal perfectionism? We spend precious time and energy battling perfection. I spent all this time thinking, oh, it's not good enough. And oh, if I submitted and oh, it's been, I found all these other reasons why. Now, I may not have said it, but it was in my mind. And as a result of that, anxiety stepped in and, just not feeling well. And it's like I got to step on the stage. But yet, I'm gearing up because it's good enough and I'm running with it. I want you to really absorb this today. This is, because we've been focusing on self-improvement, right? For the month of September. And this is why I just love tea time. And I just enjoy being with all of you because we get to have real honest conversations. We talked about decluttering and, having a cluttered mind versus a cluttered life. And now we're focusing on being good enough because I want to speak to the people and I want to speak to those who are challenged with staying there until something is perfect. How many ducks do you need to be in a row? Many times there have been incredible leaders that arise from challenging circumstances. So I want us to focus today on gearing up. And the first step of this is imaginary perfection. Spending precious time and energy battling perfection. And that's an individual ideal. All right? But it's a futile effort. Perfectionism will monopolize your time. I'll say that again. Imaginary perfection will monopolize your time and your resources. And those are two aspects that you just don't have time to waste your time or your resources and let it be monopolized because of this imaginary perfection. Something that appears perfect or flawless or, something that might be perfect to me may not be perfect for someone else. I like orange. That's my favorite color. And somebody else may say, well, I don't even like orange. Well, that's your preference, right? But just because that's your preference doesn't mean that it's perfect, or it's because my preference, it doesn't mean perfect. Again, here it is. It's about external and internal mechanisms where we spend so much time with our resources being monopolized by this imaginary perfection. So we overtake simple tasks. We overthink or obsess about matters that are not primary in focus. And with my paper, the bottom line was finish the paper. Finish the paper, bro. And I'm stuck in, all these other questions. I'm by myself having conversations. I'm sitting there like, well, maybe they won't. And I'm typing it. Well, maybe this. And I'm over here talking to myself. I talk to myself. But anyway, I'm over here talking, thinking through scenarios about how my writing would be received. I wasted time, resources, emotional space, energy, my stomach acting up because imaginary perfection. That's my story. But it happens. That's why I appreciate authenticity, because while I'm in authenticity, I'm growing as I'm going in authenticity. So there's not this measuring or evaluative assessing that I get stuck in. So it's important that when we deal with imaginary perfections, you overthink. Here's how you know when you're in imaginary perfection. You overthink or obsess with matters that are not the primary focus. You're overtaken with the simplest of tasks. Hesitancy or difficulty working with people. Sometimes people that have imaginary perfection, so they hold on to a firm belief about who and how they're going to work with, and how the work can be accomplished, and with incredible limitations. Or when you spend some time editing edits. I mean, how many times are you going to tweak? editing, edits, tweaking, tweaks. Well, let's just tweak it again. Project is due next week. Let's tweak it again. The project is due Monday. We're tweaking it again on Saturday, tweaking it again on Sunday, tweaking it again on Monday morning. It's due at 10, and I'm tweaking at 9:45. Just tweak it. You ever work with anybody like that? Well, ask yourselves, do the edits make this any better or it just makes it different? Does it make it different? Gear up. Type it in the chat. Gear up. Good enough and running. So you know that you're dealing with it when you over deliver. In other words, more is better. You know how they say you're just doing too much? Sometimes perfectionism is more. I've seen in my business decks that are glossy, all these different things happening. And as a result of that, we know what happens. It looks good, but it has no substance to it. You're just doing stuff, just tweaking it. I mean, goodness gracious, it's due at 10. Why are you tweaking it at 9:50? Okay, imaginary perfection. This is real stuff. Or you stay in this space of constant brainstorming. Now, I understand, but there are times when you're in imaginary perfection, you can drain a nice brainstorming session. You're working with people and here comes the imaginary perfectionist, limiting exploring, limiting learning, making a premature decision, going straight to the solution, immediately going straight to solution. I think it's important to embrace no bad idea moments. Just a no bad idea moment. We're going to accept every single idea that shows up. And then we're going to begin to allow ourselves to explore creatively. So let's pause here for a moment. And I want you to think about, maybe perhaps you're dealing with imaginary perfection. I'm not going to say that, but we don't want you claiming anything, for the deep folks that are here at Tea Time today. But I do want to say imaginary perfection is real externally and internally. Now let's go to number 2, transaction versus transformation. Transaction versus transformation. That's when either we minimize or we maximize. We minimize or we maximize. So we've got to find that sweet spot, where our decisions are not solely transactional. I want you to really sit with this. Really sit with this. Because when a decision is solely transactional, it is so much focused on the outcome, but transformation is focusing on the relationships leading to the outcome. Y'all sitting with this information today? Go ahead and sip your tea. Let me take my coffee. I got to think through this because I don't know, but some of us struggle. And this is real talk today about gearing up. Okay. Because when we are in transaction mode, it's about what I can get. And there's a particular outcome that needs to take place. And if that outcome doesn't come the way that I claimed it, or the way I declared it, or the way I affirmed it, then we either minimize or we maximize. Transaction versus transformation. We got to gear up with that too. Gear up with the transactional and move into the transformational or the transformative. Let's break this down a little bit more. I want to really make sure this is more practical. And so we don't want to see our jobs or our connections with people only for the transactions that must occur. I might clean a particular area, not just because I have to clean it, but because the difference that environment might make on the lives of people that I'm working with. So I'm providing an atmosphere, and I'm more concerned about transformation, not the transaction. See, when we don't gear up, where we focus on the transaction, we must allow our jobs room for transformation, not solely transactions. So I want to encourage you to implement that into your teams, to your work streams, into your projects, into your delivery of services or ideas or transferring of knowledge in your roles. Because sometimes we miss collective potential because we stay in the realm of transactions, folks. We got to find the space where we are not allowing imaginary perfectionism or transactions to overcome transformation in the work that we do, the ideas that we generate, or the knowledge that is transferred. And we end up not seeing collective potential because we're not gearing up. So, what are we going to do here? How do we gear up? When enough is enough. How to gear up. You got to figure out, how are you going to gear up? What do you think you need to do to gear up and run? Maybe think about the ideal outcome, but not necessarily the perfected outcome. Think about how that outcome can be shared. Everybody has an understanding of what those ideals are. Have you painted a picture of success? What does success look like to you? What does successful look like to you? So that you can manage expectations. What do they say? That the space between reality and expectation at times could be frustration. Maybe it's because I have not determined the ideal outcome. Maybe there's not a shared understanding of the ideal outcome. Maybe I haven't painted a picture of success, of what it looks like when we've achieved a particular goal, or we have the end game in mind. Or we can ask questions. Have we done this before? Can we relate to other work, or are we building it from scratch? Or so those are all different good questions we can ask as we're focusing on how to gear up, good enough and running. So this is not a claim to be mediocre. This is not a claim to be mediocre. Actually, it's quite the opposite. It's about these things. Now, I want you to write this down so that this can make sense to you in a practical understanding with any team you're leading, any project you're implementing, or if you're managing a function. It's about building precision around planning. Write this down. Precision, building precision around planning, resources, and efficiency. I'll say it again. It's not about being mediocre, or if you're just good enough, you're just kind of just staying still. No, when enough is enough, we get to running. When we gear up, good enough and running, it is about building precision around planning, resources, and efficiency. Planning, resources, and efficiency. I'm working on being precise with it at the front end so that as I do that with resources and efficiency, it helps us begin to develop and identify when it's enough. And then we can move forward into the next phase of running. We are intentional and we're incremental. So it's not about either or, it's about both and. There is space for being intentional, but also building in an incremental way so that we can gear up. There's good enough and running. Otherwise, we'll stay in the space of imaginary perfection, both external and internal, transaction versus transformation. And see, when we are in this space where we are focused specifically on imaginary perfectionism and transactions versus transformation, we begin to look at other people's motives and think that we know what their motives are. That's why there's tension that creates in teams, because we have this imaginary perfectionism of how things should be. And if they're not that way, we either minimize people or we maximize ourselves, or vice versa. And then it becomes about transactions. And that's where we get into leadership tension, employee morale, your morale. All those aspects are affected in a workforce context, but also in a project context and getting actions done. So I wanted us to focus on gearing up for October, November, and December. What do you need to do to gear up for the rest of your year? To close out Self-Improvement Month, what imaginary perfection mindsets that you perhaps need to look at, whether it's internal or whether it's in the environment in which you work or even live? Am I focusing more on transactions versus transformation, where I allow myself to focus, where I minimize myself or I even minimize others and then maximize myself? And that's where people start getting into telling you what your motives are, because it's all about the transaction now. It's not about the transformation. How to gear up when enough is enough. And then lastly, how do we get to running? We got to be intentional, but also incremental. Building precision around planning, resources, and efficiencies. All right, let's sit with this content today. I'm going to sip my tea again, or my coffee, excuse me, and let's sit with this. So what are your thoughts on gearing up? Go ahead, let's get some chat going. Let's get some comments going. What's your perspective? This is a tea time, so in tea time we have conversation. What is your takeaway or your takeaways in order for you to gear up, good enough, and running? What are your thoughts in the area of imagination, or imaginary perfection, excuse me, or transaction versus transformation, or how are you going to gear up and run? So let's pause here for a moment as we wrap up our session today. Give you some time to think through that, okay? So I'm just going to pause here and let's get your thoughts. Go ahead and type your thoughts. Any thoughts? Are you journaling? Let's hear from you. Let's get those ideas out. We'd love to hear from you. I think this is important that we consider how we are gearing up or if we're not. Let's hear some more here about what Tina Jones is saying. Stop the creative movie in my brain that has nothing to do with nothing. Can you put the screen back up? Sure can. Here you go. Yes, we create narratives, and many times we create narratives because there's a space of unsurety that shows up. And so we fill it with a story or a narrative. And one way to help with that is by simply saying absolutely nothing. Stillness helps us with our stories. You're welcome. Stillness helps us with our stories. Stillness, yes. Having the ability to just stop and still so that I will not create additional stories. Let's hear what else is coming out here. Monique says, start with a positive mindset. Focus on the goal and how you plan to achieve it. Yes, this is one way to start the process of gearing up. Yes, mindset shifting. The human brain is wired many times for negativity. That's why things go viral. bad news sells, right? So yes, starting off on that side, what if everything goes well? What if good enough is good enough? What if I can continue to grow as I go? Shifting those narratives, that is important to have those types of paradigm shifts. Thank you all for sharing that. Anybody else want to share some takeaways, some key points that you're grabbing from today's tea time? And again, we're talking about gearing up, right? Imaginary perfection. What else here? Work on not overthinking and understanding that enough is enough. Constant changes does not necessarily making it better. Constantly changing. Yes, that's absolutely right. That's what we were talking about. Again, we're going to keep tweaking until there's nothing left to tweak. We're going to edit the edits. Thank you all for sharing your perspectives here today. I hope that you're considering how this applies to every aspect of who you are. This is something we can embrace, a concept we can embrace. And I appreciate those of you that are sharing your authenticity with us today. You're letting us know that this is reaching you, this is impacting you. These ideas make sense. And I think this is a resilient discussion that we want to continue to have. I'm going to pause here for a moment and just want to express that here at the Renewal Center, we'd like you to consider partnering with us. We are a nonprofit organization here in the Concord, Charlotte, North Carolina area, located 159 Church Street in the historic district of Concord. Feel free to download our mobile app in your particular app store. You can type in the Renewal Center. You'll see our logo. You can follow us on our social media sites. You can donate to us by visiting our website, as well as you can text to give as well. So I want to share that with you there at the bottom of the screen, Renewal Center, to 888-364-4483. We definitely appreciate you partnering with us. If this content in tea time is adding value to you, strengthening you, providing thought leadership, providing insights, we'd ask you to partner with us as we continue to grow and expand our programming for the Renewal Center. So also download our mobile app too, so you can have our content readily available directly to you. We call it direct to renewer, direct to consumer. All right, let's keep going and hearing what comments are coming up here today. Thank you, Carmela, for sharing yours as well. Quickly address things that monopolize my time and energy. Ooh, huge one. Yeah. You got to look at what saps. Sometimes it's what's inside of us. Sometimes it's what we allow. Sometimes it's transactions. Sometimes it's imaginary perfection. That's a good approach to gear up. Thank you for sharing that. Karen says, sitting with the original thought and stop overthinking. Absolutely, that makes complete sense. I want to encourage you. There are times when we sit there and we analyze it to where there's nothing left. We can break it down so much that there's nothing else for us to grab from a substance perspective because we analyze it to where it's not even there anymore. All right, I want to encourage us, spend some time gearing up this week. Think through good enough. Let's type it out. We're in a season of gearing up. How many of you are with me on this? We're all going to gear up. We're good enough and running, right? We're going to be intentional. We're going to do it in increments. It's going to be incremental. We're not going to minimize or maximize too much. We're not going to be stuck in transactions, but move with transformation. And we're going to begin to manage this imaginary perfection. We are in a moment to gear up. That's the focus. Good enough and running. I hope you're with me on this. All right. I remember telling myself some stories, and as a result of that, potentially I stayed stuck because of the stories I told myself, because of those narratives. That's just one way. There are many other ways that we embrace in actions or thoughts that block us from being able to gear up. So I just want to remind you again, really think through. I'll bring this back up one more time for you to see. I want to encourage you, if you're ever in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, please come visit us at the Renewal Center, 159 Church Street in the historic district. Feel free to download the mobile app, type in the Renewal Center in your app store, and we'd appreciate your connection with us as a partner in your giving. You can donate with our text to give option. You can text Renewal Center to the number that you see on the screen, 888-364-4483, or you can, of course, donate through our website and, of course, our mobile app. So if you have any last words, please go ahead and just share those comments. What are your takeaways? Take some time to locate yourself. Take some time today to put this in your journal, in your time of journaling, all right? And encourage yourself that you are in the season to gear up. We're good enough to accomplish. Absolutely. Oh, yeah, I like what you're saying there, Dex. Thank you so much for sharing that. Karen says we are in a season of gearing up. Yes, we are. Season of gearing up. We're good enough to accomplish the task God has assigned to each of us. Hashtag gear up. Hashtag good enough. Hashtag get ready. Yes, let's do that. Gear up, folks. Thank you for connecting with us today here at the Renewal Center. Our tea time will be back next week, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Bring someone with you. Want to also let you know tomorrow evening we have our Reforming Culture series prayer. We have a journaling and prayer session tomorrow, 7 p.m. You can register by going on the Renewal Center site, or you can register, download the mobile app, and our team sends out notifications for you to register for that. The class is normally first, second, and third Wednesdays, but we have a fifth Wednesday, and we're going to use our time tomorrow for a time of journaling and prayer. Powerful time of sitting in the presence of the Lord. And that is one of the aspects of our vision here at the Renewal Center. So I want to thank everyone. Hope that you have a very good day. This has been a great subject. I hope that you benefited greatly from it. I want to thank Carmela, our director of our renewal and community programming, for coming on, and the rest of our team. And so we're excited about being able to provide this resource to you. All right. Any last words? Thanks so much for everyone joining. Hope that this has been a great session. I've enjoyed today. Thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you. Bettina Hunt, thank you so much for coming on today. And those of you that may not even adding comments today, hopefully this has been beneficiary to you. All right. And as we say at the Renewal Center, I am Renewal. Everyone have a very good day. We'll talk with you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.